Hello everybody, Pokemon Trainer Rob here, and welcome to another edition of the Pokemon Go log series. So, it's been a few months since my last update. However, unlike the last update, this wasn't because I haven't been playing the game, because I have actually been playing the game. I've been playing it on a pretty regular basis, and even if I don't actually play the game, I still try to get on every day just to get my daily bonuses and stuff of that nature. So I have been putting work into it, and honestly, still has been very fun. It's just not something that, I really want to do every single day, especially now that Fire Emblem Heroes is out, and I've been also spending a lot of time on that mobile game as opposed to Pokemon Go. But I've still definitely had a few Pokemon Go sessions every now and then. And there have been a couple events that have happened as well, so I wanted to kind of talk about those events before the next big change, which is actually rumored, maybe not even rumored, I think it's actually going to happen. This weekend is when the Johto Pokedex is officially going to be live, at least from my understanding, so it won't just be Kanto Pokemon anymore. There have been a few Johto Pokemon. They actually released some of the baby forms during the Christmas event, but I haven't gotten any of those yet. I'll be kind of talking about that a little bit later. But now the actual Pokedex will be live soon, so you can start catching stuff like Mareeps, Woopers, Spinnerax, Ladybuzz. Pretty much any Pokemon from the Gen 2 Pokedex will be live, with exception to, the legendaries, but I still wonder what they're going to actually do for the legendaries, because the legendaries for Kanto have still not been really released yet either, so I don't know, we'll just have to wait and see. But as usual, before I get into that stuff, I do kind of want to talk about some of the progression that I've had in the game so far, and there has been quite a bit of progression as well. So before we get started with all the events and start talking about all that stuff, let's go over all the new Pokemon I've caught. So, according to this, I've caught 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I've caught 15 new Pokemon, so that's pretty good. That's actually more than I got in between the last update, so I've really been putting some work in. Although, to be fair, there's also been a lot of events that have helped me getting some of the Pokemon I needed a lot easier. So, let's go ahead and get started here. The first Pokemon I got, pretty immediately, right outside the gate, is Exeggutor. I finally got enough candy to evolve my Exeggcute into Exeggutor, and I was happy about that, because I remember I got Exeggcute really, really early, and it was taking a while for Exeggutor to come along, but at some point I got enough. I think I even hatched an egg of Exeggcute. Yes, there was a bunch of eggs inside one egg. Isn't that crazy? So yeah, I was able to get enough candy to evolve Exeggcute to Exeggutor, which is awesome because Grass Psychic, I think, is a really, really good type comp. So we'll have to see how that actually goes. Very weak to Bug, but that's pretty normal. The next Pokemon I got was Cloyster, another evolution. So once again, pretty much just kept farming Shelter until I eventually got Cloyster, and was really happy to get this one. And for the final evolution, I was able to get a Nidoking. I was really, really close to Nidoking. I had one or two Nidoran left before I actually had enough to get a Nidoking. And it was kind of a race between Nidoking and Nidoqueen about which one would come first. And it was Nidoqueen that actually won that, but still, it was nice to get Nidoking immediately following. The next Pokemon I found, and this is actually the next two Pokemon I found. This is actually pretty iconic because I actually found these next two when I was actually hanging out with my good friend Power to Mario. He came down to Indiana, or came up to Indiana since he lives in Florida, the further south state. So he came up to Indiana. He was here on work business and stuff like that. And I came up to visit him. We visited for a while. We walked around a mall. And I was able to find this Pokemon, which was a Magnemite. So Magnemite had eluded me for a very long time. It was one of the last few families I needed to actually have one member of every family. Although for some reason I don't have Doduo yet, which is weird because I feel like I keep mentioning that I still don't have Doduo because that was one of the families I used in my Pokemon Blue Let's Play. So yeah, I still don't have that, which is kind of sucky, but I was able to get Magnemite, I guess. In fact, I think I actually got a second one too. There was a second Magnemite at the place we were at, so I was able to get two, but I still need some work before I can get Magneton, unfortunately. And as far as the other Pokemon I found, this Pokemon was not a new Pokemon necessarily. It wasn't a new entry for my Pokedex, but this was a special type of Pokemon because I found a Holiday Pikachu, which is basically a Pikachu with a Santa hat. So this was basically an event Pokemon during, I want to say, the later half of December. There was a possibility you could find a Pikachu with a Santa hat, a festive Pikachu, so they called it. And while we were walking around the same mall, I was able to find it. So I was really happy about that. But where the Pokedex actually comes into play, though, is I actually got a couple of Pikachu during this time. More than enough Pikachu to actually get enough to evolve one of my festive Pikachu into a festive Raichu, which is what added Raichu to the Pokedex as well. So even though Pikachu wasn't a new addition, Raichu definitely was, and I was happy to actually get an event version of it as well, so that was really, really cool. The next Pokemon I got, also, I got not really an event, this was just something they kind of introduced as time went on, but I was able to get a Ditto. So basically what happens, you catch a Pokemon, and then there's a small percentage that a Pokemon you catch will turn into a Ditto after you capture it. So it was really cool to see how Ditto worked and how you actually got it. I'd only heard rumors last time I talked about this, but I was able to get a Ditto, and that pretty much added that to the Pokedex as well. And while we're on the subject of the holiday event, there was another important aspect of the holiday event as well. I'll kind of be talking about that a little bit later. But thanks to the holiday event, they actually increased the possibility for you to find starter Pokemon. And because of that, I was able to find both Ivysaur and Charmeleon relatively easily. Because I only had the first forms. In fact, the only Charmander I had was the very first Pokemon I picked at the very beginning of me using the app. So I didn't have any Charmander candy whatsoever, and that was before I knew how the Stardust system worked and also the candy system worked. So when I actually got my Charmander, I increased its level or its CP with candy as opposed to finding a better one, so I pretty much wasted all of the Charmander candy I had from the get-go. But I was able to find enough Charmander to get a Charmeleon, and I was able to find enough Bulbasaur to get an Ivysaur, and I'm currently working on trying to build them up, in addition to Wartortle, because I already had Wartortle at the time, and trying to get them to their final forms. It's going to take a while. It'd be really nice if they did this event again, just so I'd have a better chance to get those final forms. But still, it was good to actually have an increased spawn of those Pokemon. In fact, I got a lot of these Pokemon at MagFest, which I'll kind of be talking about later, kind of using the app during a convention, because that was something new I actually have done since the last update. So yeah, I was able to get those two. And as far as other evolutions are concerned, I was also able to snag a Seaking, a Graveler, and an Arbok. I'm going to try to fit all three on screen. But yeah, again, this was during the convention. I was able to find enough versions of all those Pokemon to get these Pokemon, so it was nice to have them taken care of. So that was a nice little +3 right there. The next Pokemon I got was an Ammonite. Something else that happened during the event was essentially you got one of those egg incubators every single day. Like the first swipe of a Pokestop, you'd always get like an incubator. And it gave me a lot of eggs. And in those eggs, there was a possibility that you could find the baby Pokemon. So you could find Togepi, Pichu, Igglybuff, Cleffa, and I believe Smoochum, Magby, and Elekid as well. So you could find any of those Pokemon. I unfortunately did not find any of them, which I know, very, very tragic. But I did get a 10 egg at one point, and the Pokemon I got from that was a new Pokemon, and that Pokemon was Ammonite, so I finally have one of the fossils. So I was really, really happy about that. And from there, we moved from one event to pretty much the next event, because the next three Pokemon I actually kind of got from the effects of the Valentine's event. The Valentine's event essentially made pink Pokemon appear more easily. Pokemon like Jigglypuff, Clefairy, Executes. I want to say Slowpoke is also involved, and even the semi-legendary Chansey, which unfortunately I was never able to find a Chansey, but I did find enough Jigglypuff to get me a Wigglytuff, so I added Wigglytuff to my Pokedex. Although not a pink Pokemon, another thing the Valentine's event did was it actually doubled the amount of candy you got for Pokemon catches. And one of the Pokemon I was really close with was the Ghastly family. So I was able to get a lot of candy through catching Ghastlies during this event. And that gave me enough to evolve my Haunter into a Gengar. So I was able to finally get Gengar to my team. And the last Pokemon I kind of got help from for this event, not a pink Pokemon again, but I was able to hatch an egg that gave me like 20 or 30 candy, because whenever you hatch a Pokemon, you get way more candy. I hatched a Mankey, which gave me a lot of candy, which was able to give me a Primeape, which I didn't have yet. So Primeape was the most recent Pokemon I got, and it was also the 100th Pokemon I got. That is right. On the Pokedex right now, I am at 100 Pokemon, so I am 2/3 through the Kanto Pokedex. There's still a lot of work to go. Thankfully, the majority of the Pokemon that I have left are evolutions, and since I have at least one member of most of the families, I can at least work on them through the buddy system. But I'm obviously still missing all the one-offs. I'm obviously missing the Dratini family, the Doduo family. And there probably is another family I'm missing as well that I can't think of. But yeah, I was able to get these Pokemon. So 100 Pokemon, that's a good feeling. I feel like that's a good way to kind of graduate or semi-graduate from the Kanto series as we go to the Kanto and Johto series. So yeah, a nice little milestone to reach before the end of that sequence for the most part. So yeah, that's what my Pokedex is at right now, 100 Pokemon out of 150. Technically, it's not even 150 because they don't include Mewtwo, the legendary bird, so I guess it's 100 out of 146. And even then, some of the Pokemon are ridiculously hard to get, like the continent-specific ones, but I'm not going to get into that. But yeah, that's pretty much going to do it for this, the Pokedex portion of this playthrough. As far as my level, I only gone up one level, so I'm at level 24 right now. I'm almost to level 25, but I couldn't make enough progress during the Valentine's event to get to level 25. But I will be hitting that very, very soon, especially with all the daily bonuses and stuff like that. So yeah, that is the Pokedex portion of the playthrough. Now I kind of want to start talking about some of the events and stuff that went on. The first event was the holiday event. Kind of briefly talked about this in this section already, but for the holiday event, there were a few things that happened. For one, you could find the Festive Pikachu, and you could also get Festive Raichu as well. Thankfully, I was able to get both, so that was one check mark for that. The second thing was increased appearance rates for the starter Pokemon and Pikachu. Which I did make use out of. I didn't completely finish all of the Pokemon from those series, but I got some good progress in. I'm at least halfway there with all the candies, so maybe once I finally get a Poliwrath and I can put that buddy Pokemon away, maybe I can start working on those. Although I kind of want to work on Ammonite, because Ammonite was such a rare find, so I figured it might be better to focus on rare Pokemon first. And I don't even want to get into working on Magikarp yet for Gyarados, because my god, that's going to be such a long process. So yeah, we'll see what happens there, but I was able to make use out of the starter appearances, the increased starter appearances. And the final thing that could happen is finding Johto baby Pokemon, which unfortunately I was unable to find any of them, and that was a huge, huge pain, a huge letdown. I at least wanted one. I wanted one of the babies, but I could not get it. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. That's the way this game works. It's based on like a random drop thing, so not much I could really do about that, unfortunately. But the baby forms are still in the game. It's just like not as likely I'll find them, especially with even more Johto Pokemon coming up next. But they could still essentially appear at some point in the future, so I'm not going to get too discouraged. They're not gone from the game. It's just not as likely that I'll find them. So that's pretty much what happened there. And of course, the daily incubators as well. Which, here's a picture from that. I was able to have all these eggs being incubated at once. And unfortunately, they were only one-use incubators, so once they were gone, they're gone. But still, this is what my inventory looked like at one point, which was really, really cool. It was really nice having all those incubators, not going to lie. So yeah, that was the holiday event. The holiday event went on for a very long time. Like I said, it was kind of going on during the latter half of December, and also like the first week or two of January as well. So it went on for a very, very, very good amount of time. Enough time to get like a lot of starter Pokemon, enough time to find Festive Pikachu. So yeah, I was really, really happy about that. So that was pretty much the Christmas event, the holiday event. The next event was the Valentine's event, where, as I mentioned before, had a better chance to find pink Pokemon like Jigglypuff, Clefairy, Chansey, Lickitung, Slowbro. I think Slowpoke counted for that, because I found a Slowpoke during that time. I just don't know if it truly counted that. It seemed like they really wanted to focus more on like the Moonstone Pokemon, the Clefairy and Jigglypuff family, and Chansey. But I mean, Slowpoke is pink, so I guess that should count. Execute as well. So yeah, if they included Execute, I don't see why they wouldn't include Slowpoke in that as well. So yeah, that went on. You could also get double candy from... you got double candy from Catches, from Hatches, Buddy Pokemon. It'd take half the distance to get one candy, or whatever the increment was. And I believe it also increased the amount of candy you got from transfers as well. So when you think about it, whenever you caught a Pokemon, you could essentially get 8 candy from that Pokemon, because you'd get the 3 candy you normally get doubled, so that's 6. And then if it was one you didn't need or one you didn't want to evolve, you'd transfer it for 2 more. So you could get 8 candy from that, which really, I think really speeds up the process when you really think about it. But still, I mean, that's still like, if you want to go for like an 100 candy Pokemon, that's still like, let's see, 10, that's still about 13 Pokemon you'd have to get in that fashion, so it'd still take a while, but still, it was definitely faster, and that was probably the thing I enjoyed more from this particular update. So yeah, that was a nice event as well. It kind of lasted too short, I feel like. It was for an entire week, I think, or rather the weekend. I want to say it started on like a Thursday, and then it went on until the day after Valentine's Day, so I think it was about a week. But I don't know, like again, the holiday event lasted for so long, so it was like I wanted the Valentine's to go on a bit longer, especially since I never found a Chansey, but... what can you do? It was kind of cold during those days, so I couldn't really go outside to make the best use out of it. And I was also just playing around with Fire Emblem Heroes as well, so again, I wasn't able to completely take advantage of that. So those were the 2 events that went on during the period of time from my last update to this update for this log series. Really enjoy the events. The events are a lot of fun. You can really find a lot of Pokemon and really take advantage of them, which I really, really like, because I do think Pokemon Go definitely still has some issues with, you know, in terms of how often Pokemon appear in certain areas and stuff like that. So even if it's just like a mini increase, it was definitely a significant increase. So that was really nice to see. Yeah, so if they keep doing events like this, I'll be really, really happy. I'm really curious to see what they're going to do for Easter, because you know it's going to involve eggs in some way. So maybe eggs will take half the amount of steps. Maybe they'll give incubators every single day. That would be really, really cool. Like, I'd really love another event like that, because that was probably my favorite part of the holiday event, just the fact that you got so many incubators and you can hatch all of these eggs that you had in reserve. So I'm really hoping that's what they're going to be doing for the Easter event. And they'll probably have maybe the baby Pokemon appear again. Maybe it'll even be an even larger percentage or something. So we'll see what happens there. So yeah, those were the events. The other thing I kind of want to talk about is my experience playing Pokemon Go at a convention, and honestly, it was a lot of fun. It's kind of interesting when you really think about it, though, because the convention I was at, which was MagFest, MagFest takes place in the hotel where you stay at, or at least in the area of where you stay at, because it takes place in the Gaylord convention, the Gaylord Hotel and Convention Center, and that's pretty much where I stayed, and that's where the convention was being held, and it was a 24-hour convention. Like, it was always going on, so you could just kind of go down to the convention at your own leisure, do what you want to do, then go back up to your room to retreat. So essentially, because it was such a big place, you could literally walk around the whole convention and you could find, honestly, a lot of Pokemon. Of course, though, because of how weird the Wi-Fi was and how weird just the, connections were in general, you'd find that your character would jump around a lot. So even if you were like in a specific place in the hotel, sometimes you just like transfer over to the other side, which was actually kind of helpful sometimes, because sometimes you'd be on one side of the hotel and then like your character would warp to the other side, and then you'd find a Pokemon that like you couldn't get to in time otherwise. So it was nice to be able to kind of still be able to catch Pokemon on the other side of the building when you were on one side. So that was kind of cool how you could kind of cover that ground. I think it also really helped with egg steps as well. Like, it really kind of helped with, since you were moving around a lot, it really increased the counter for your eggs as well. So that was also something really, really cool about that. But yeah, it was honestly a lot of fun. I had a lot of friends who were also playing Pokemon Go during that as well. We kind of had a good time kind of letting the others know when a Pokemon had appeared. It's like, oh, hey, if you're not playing right now, just letting you know there's this Pokemon over here. Turn your phone on. So that was like really, really nice to kind of have that assistance as well. And again, like for conventions, it's one of those things where you think it would be really fun to do at conventions, and it is. But because like you're walking around a lot, and because you also need to watch where you're going a lot, like you need to kind of like keep your eyes up and not just be looking at the phone the whole time, because you don't want to like walk into somebody or like maybe walk down a step you couldn't see and just like fall down or something. You had to be careful. But at the same time, like, it was still something good, because there is a lot of walking around at conventions, so you'd get a lot of points added to your step meter and your buddy meter and stuff like that. So it was good to kind of have that advantage while that convention was going on. And of course, it was also the same, the holiday event was still going on as well, so a lot of starter Pokemon were found as well. And then just going to a new area and seeing, like, Pokemon appear more often, that was the thing that I think really helped, because two of the Pokemon I got during that convention were Arbok, Graveler, and Seaking, which I'd had their primary forms, but I didn't have a lot of them. And at this particular location, there were a lot of those Pokemon around. So even just going to a new area, like the new area of the map of the country, you can find probably different Pokemon than you can find in the area where you live. So that was really, really helpful, and actually kind of giving me more Pokemon for my Pokedex. I'm actually looking forward to when I go down to Florida this year for my annual family vacation. I'm interested in seeing like if I can find like even more different Pokemon, and then I can even increase the Pokedex even more. That should be a lot of fun doing that. So yeah, it was a really good experience playing the game at the convention. My only advice is obviously, for one, play with your brightness settings very low just so you don't waste battery, because that could be a big thing, losing battery, and you kind of need your phone at conventions, especially if you're with a group of people and need to contact somebody in an emergency. So yeah, definitely play with your settings on low. Try to keep your phone charged as much as possible, and yeah, just be aware of what you're doing. Don't cause an accident. It's just like driving. Maybe not as worse as driving while playing Pokemon Go, but still, you have to be very aware and very observant of what you're doing while you're playing, and I think that's very important. So yeah, that's pretty much my experience with using it at a convention. So that was really, really cool. The last thing, don't really have much else to say here. This is a pretty long video as it is. I'm going to try to wrap things up now. This weekend is when the Johto Pokemon are set to release on the app. And I have to admit, this is actually a lot earlier than I thought they would release them. I know there were a lot of people who were like, add the Johto Pokemon already for like the longest time. But it still never felt right. Like, I almost felt like it would be a thing where it almost needed to be up for an entire year before they release them. But no, it's been like, this is like the middle of February. The game released around July. So, let's see, about 7 months, half a year, almost half a year, a little more than half a year, around the 5 to 7 month period that the game's been out. So, yeah, it kind of surprised me that they've released it so soon, but at the same time, maybe it's good that they did, because maybe they were kind of running out of ideas for events to keep people interested, so they figured, well, let's just give them new Pokemon to work with as well, and that's kind of what they did. So, looking forward to catching all those Johto Pokemon. That's going to happen this weekend. I wanted to kind of get this video up before then. I didn't even mention that I was making this video, actually. Once I heard that Johto Pokemon were going to be a thing, I'm like, oh my god, that's going to make my next update video even big. So I figured that to actually close out the first era of Pokemon Go, I'd make one more log video, talk about all of the final Generation 1 events and stuff like that, and then get ready for Generation 2 to appear in the following weekend. So that's kind of why I made this video here when I did. So maybe for next update, maybe I'll try doing this like a month from now. So once the Gen 2 Pokemon have kind of gotten settled a little bit, I can kind of just start talking about those adventures, maybe showing off a lot of Pokemon I caught, stuff of that nature. So that's probably going to be the plan. So I'm going to go ahead and end this video here. Thanks to everybody for keeping up with the series. I know that this is not the most consistent series in terms of uploading, but I have fun talking about this game. Even though Fire Emblem Heroes came out and I'm really, really into that game, and I almost like it a little more than Pokemon Go, still, Pokemon Go was probably my favorite game from the year 2016. It was probably my favorite new release, and I've had a lot of good fun with it. I've gotten a lot of exercise with it, and I think it's a solid game, and I still really enjoy it, and I think it'll be even more fun continuing on. I just wish that maybe Niantic would start addressing some of the issues I've kind of had with the game so far. I'm not going to really get into that right now. I've kind of spent my piece talking about that in past updates, so I don't want to be a broken record and restating those points again. But for the most part, the fact that they've kept this going for as long as they have, I think is honestly a testament enough to how good this game is. I think it's a lot of fun. Maybe not everyone will agree, but that's just the way it is. Not everybody has to like the same game. But yeah, I'm looking forward to playing this game even more. Happy Gen 2 hunting, everybody, and I'll see you guys next time. Later, folks.